So you've gotten your paycheck, and you're looking at the number and you're saying, whew, I could have sworn it was going to be a little bit higher than that. Might have to stay home and do a little bit of cooking to save money. So what happened there? You thought you were going to make this nice, fat, juicy paycheck. But then you get it and it's smaller than what you thought it was going to be? Well, my dear friends, what you have just experienced is what we know as state income tax paralysis. It's when you look at your paycheck and it's small and you're like, where did all my money go? Well, some of it went to your state that you live in. Because in order to afford all these nice roads and bridges and schools and city halls and sidewalks and police and firefighters and teachers and all the wonderful public service employees, in order to afford that, we have to take some of your paycheck in order to pay those people or fund those services. So it could make you feel good inside. You'd be like, oh, maybe that went to, my local fire department to improve some of their businesses. Or maybe it went to building a new lane on a highway so that, we can all get to where we're going a little bit faster. But typically it doesn't make you feel good because you're like, but after you get away from the state income tax paralysis, you can start to analyze what happened. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to say, how do you calculate its effect on your paycheck? So first I want to point out the lucky 9, right? There are 9 states that do not have any state income tax. Alaska, Florida, Nevada, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, y'all, Washington, Wyoming. If you are a denizen of one of those wonderful states, then you can start clicking your heels right now and say, yay, no state income tax. But if you ever want to move to the other 41 states, or if you live in one of those 41 states currently, then this is a really important lesson because you get to see what that impact would be if you moved there or if you live there now. Small side note. I live in Texas. So you might say to yourself, oh, okay, moneybags, just sitting here, no state income tax. But it's not actually that simple. In order to fund the bridges and roads and firefighter salaries and all those wonderful public services that I mentioned earlier, we actually have to pay other higher taxes in other places, right? So it's not like there's a saying, there's no free lunch, right? There's no free lunch in Texas. We actually have to pay really high property taxes in the houses that we live in, much higher than the other 41 states. So that was the side note. Now let's go to Missouri. All right, we are in Missouri. And before we go through this, I just want to point out that these are approximations based on the current tax rate. And they can go up or down depending on who's in office, because your political leaders can change these rates. They can make them higher to afford more public services, or they can make them lower to help businesses reinvest by saving in taxes. So you never quite know where the taxes are going to be year to year. So just because you do this lesson, don't offer to do somebody's state income taxes and say, don't worry, Mr. Rogers told me, because these could change year to year. But let's take a look at what Missouri has on offer. Missouri says you'll be taxed 2% on the first $2,000 that you make. Simple enough. Let me make a little adjustment here. It's not $2,000, it's actually $2,001. So the next $2,001 to $9,000 will be taxed at a higher rate of 5%. And then $9,001 and above will be taxed at the highest rate, 5.4%. So as you can see, the more money you make, the higher your tax rate goes. And that's true of most developed nations in the entire world. So basically what we've surmised is that if you're down on your luck and you're not doing so well and you're not making as much money, we shouldn't charge you as high of a tax rate as somebody who's doing really, really well. And so that is the difference in tax rates you see here. So if you're only making $2,000 a year, you might be a student, you might be unemployed, you might be some other thing that's making it difficult for you. So that's why that rate is the lowest, and then it climbs the more money you make. So let's take a look. Let's say that we make an annual salary of $40,000 a year. Okay. So this is our salary, $40,000 salary per year. What is our state income tax obligation going to look like? Well, the first $2,000 that we make, is going to be taxed at 2%. So we're here, $2,000 is going to be taxed at 2%. All right, so the way you do 2,000 times 2% in your head is you do 2 times 2, which will give you 4. All right, and you say $4. That's not quite enough, right? How much money would it make sense to have 2% out of 2,000? The answer there is 40. Done differently, if you don't want to do the mental math side of this, you can always multiply it. So you can always do 2,000 times 2%. To do 2%, you go back 2 decimal places. You'll put a 0 where there wasn't anything originally. 2 times 2 is 4. Right? And then we have 2 decimal places canceling out these 2 zeros. So we'll need to add 1 more 0 to get us to those $40. So there's a number of different ways that you can calculate this tax obligation, but your first $2,000, you'll owe $40 in taxes to the state of Missouri. So we've already taxed this $40,000. We've already taxed $2,000 of it. So now there's only $38,000 left. Now, the next $2,001 to $9,000, that is going to be taxed at 5%. So how much money is between $2,000 and $9,000? Well, there's $7,000. Now, technically, it's $6,999, but we're going to use 7,000 as a round figure so that we can understand this without getting caught up in the minutia of the math. So there's $7,000 taxable dollars in this bracket here, taxed at 5%. All right. You're saying to yourself, okay, so that mental math skill that you taught me last time, I don't know, Mr. Rogers, that one was pretty tough for me. Do you have another one that might work? Let's think about this for a second. 5% of 7,000, that might be kind of taxing on your brain. Did you see, that was a joke, like taxing, the state income, there's taxing on your brain is hard. Okay, the jokes aren't great today, but they're going to get better. 10% of 7,000 would be way easier. Think about it. 10% of 7,000 is like dividing by 10. That would be $700 if this said 10%. But it doesn't. It says 5%. So what you do is you take 10% of this and then you say, well, 10% is double of what 5% is. So if I just cut that answer in half, I'll have how much I owe in taxes. So 10% of 7,000 is 700, but I only want half of that, $350. Last one. So we have $7,000 of taxable dollars that we just taxed. So now we only have $31,000 left to be taxed. So $31,000 will all be taxed at the highest tax rate at 5.4%. So $31,000, or the remainder, will be taxed at 5.4%. All right, so for this one, let's just use the standard algorithm. We've gone through 2 different mental math skills. Let's use the standard algorithm on this one. So we have 31,000 times 5.4. But we're thinking it's actually not 5.4, it's 5.4%. So we move the decimal over 2 places. So it's 0.054. All right, and we think, we've got 31,000 over here. We've got 0.054 over here. There's another skill that we can use. We can deal with the place value later. Let's just figure out what 31 times 54 is. And we can deal with the place value afterward. So 4 times 3 is 12. 5 times 1 is 5. And 5 times 3 is 15. So we have 4, 7, 6, and 1. So we've got 1,674. Okay? And we say to ourselves, all right, so we're going to deal with the place value now. So we had 3 decimal places getting us to the thousandths place, right? This is the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So this is in the thousandths. And this is 31,000. Right? Do you see how similar those are? Thousand and thousandths. So basically we have a situation we are going to have 31,000 times 54 thousandths. And those thousands, when you multiply, right, they're going to divide to create 1. So we can actually see that those are going to eliminate themselves, and we're left with just exactly what we calculated, $1,674. So there you have it. Those are the 3 values in which we are taxed. The first 2,000 was taxed just a little bit, 2%. The next 7,000, between 2,000 and 9,000, was taxed at 5%, and then everything else thereafter is at 5.4% in the state of Missouri. Let's add. So 40 and 50, so this would be like 390 here. And so I just added these two to make it just an easier addition problem. 4, 16, that's going to make 10, and 2. So $2,064 in state income tax. I'll write that a little larger right here because it's so painful to see. Look at that. So you're in Missouri and you're making $40,000 a year in salary. And you have to give just over $2,000 of it back to the state? Ugh, it's kind of a gut punch. But you have to think, if you didn't do this and there were no taxes, that means you would have to take care of all of the fires that happened in your house by yourself. That means you'd have to rely on somebody in the community to teach, the kids that you may have in the future. That means that you'd have to build your own roads, right? So there's a lot of benefit to having taxation because you're able to spread out these services to more people efficiently. I'm not saying it makes this number any easier to digest. Thanks for your time.